David Price has hired Adam Booth as his new trainer. He obviously split up with his previous trainer, Franny Smith, a few weeks ago. And his promoter and manager, Frank Maloney, has now retired from boxing. And his contract with Maloney was up anyway. So he's now got his new trainer, Adam Booth. No word yet, from what I have heard so far myself, on who's going to be promoting David Price. He might end up with Haymaker Promotions, or he might end up with Eddie Hearn. We just don't know yet. But he is with Adam Booth as his trainer. My initial thoughts on Adam Booth as his trainer: most people know now what kind of style Adam Booth teaches. And it has to be said, Adam Booth has only had one successful fighter so far in his career as a trainer, and that's David Haye. One fighter. George Groves, I mean, he had some domestic level and European level wins, but he didn't take George Groves to world honors or anything like that. George Groves has never fought a world-class fighter, apart from maybe Glenn Johnson, but Glenn Johnson was way over the hill and just really showed up for a payday. So Booth's credentials, he's got David Haye, but there's a lot of trainers out there who have had world champions, and they ended up with one world champion and no one else. Because a lot of the time, the world champion that they have is so talented that he could have probably succeeded with a number of different trainers, not necessarily the best trainers out there. If you look at Roy Jones's career, yeah, one of my favorite fighters of all time, probably my very favorite fighter of all time, Roy Jones Jr. The guys that trained him were not the greatest trainers, but Roy had so much natural talent that he got away without having the best coaching available. He got away with it because his physical gifts were so incredible. And I think I've always felt personally that it's a similar situation with David Haye, that there is a lot of things missing from his game, which, in my opinion, could be added and could have been taught to him if he'd been brought along early enough with the right trainer. I think he could have had a much more rounded game than he has with Adam Booth. I personally believe that. But it is what it is. Adam Booth has obviously taught David Haye some good things. I'm not going to rubbish Adam Booth as a trainer completely, all right? Despite my infamous video, which I made a few years ago about Adam Booth, he is learning on the job, and he has been getting better as a trainer. So, I'm not completely rubbishing Adam Booth. He obviously does some things well. He's obviously learned some things. He's obviously picked some things up along the way. But looking at fighters he's taken on recently, like Selcock Aiden, Andy Lee, to me, he hasn't been able to teach these guys much. Or at least he hasn't been able to teach them much that is useful for their particular ability. Selcock Aiden, when Selcock Aiden was with Adam Booth for the Soto Karas fight, you could see Selcock Aiden trying to jump in and out with punches and, fight a little bit David Haye. And Selcock Aiden don't have the athleticism to fight like that. But yeah, Adam Booth had him fighting like that. And I think it's going to be a similar thing with David Price. If he tries to teach David Price the David Haye style fighting, jumping in and out, I see that as being disastrous for David Price. I don't think he's going to be successful with that type of fighting at all. I think the only way that David Price is going to be able to be successful in the heavyweight division, in terms of world level, is if he goes down the Vladimir Klitschko route of jab, jab, grab, hit and hold. That's the only way I see it. I don't think he's light enough on his feet. I don't think he's, tough enough physically or mentally to fight that kind of maverick style that David Haye fights. Because David Haye is a very tough guy mentally. People can say whatever they want to say about him, hate on him and all that kind of stuff. And a hell of a lot of the hate he brings on himself, no doubt. But David Haye is a very mentally tough guy. That's one thing I could definitely tell you. He is mentally tough. And in the ring, to fight the style that David Haye fights. Jumping in with big shots. And, when you jump in with a big shot, big power shot, you're taking a risk. People think that David Haye's style is somewhat, a little bit cowardly and defensive, but he's getting in there with huge guys. Just getting in the ring with someone that much bigger than you, like a Vladimir Klitschko or a Tyson Fury, takes a certain amount of guts and heart that most people don't have. Who the hell's going to give away that kind of height and reach and natural weight? Very few fighters are willing to do it. Most of the guys in the lighter weights are not willing to do it. They're not willing to give away that type of size advantage. So as much as you want to say this and that about people like David Haye, this guy does have a strong character. There's just no doubt about it. He does have a strong character. So yeah, the Adam Booth style for David Price, I don't think he has the foot speed. I don't think he has the reflexes. I don't think he has the nimbleness and the athleticism and the explosiveness to pull that style off. But it is possible that maybe Adam Booth has learned from his mistakes and maybe he isn't going to try and implement his typical Adam Booth style or impose his typical Adam Booth style on David Price. Maybe he's just going to tighten up David Price's fundamentals. Now, David Price was signed with Haymaker Promotions early on in his career. But when the deal with Satanta fell through, he left Haymaker Promotions and Adam Booth actually advised him to join Frank Maloney because, of course, David Haye was signed to Frank Maloney early on in his career. And they obviously had a fairly decent relationship with Frank Maloney. So, it was, Price and Adam Booth have always had a decent relationship. There's never been any animosity there. They've always had a decent relationship. So mentally, it might be a good thing, in terms of the chemistry between Price and Adam Booth. They might click. They might be on the right kind of page mentally. But stylistically, it remains to be seen whether Booth can really do anything for David Price. As I said, so far he's only produced David Haye. And George Groves has obviously gone off with a different trainer now in Paddy Fitzpatrick. So, I don't know, man. The jury's still out for me on Booth as a trainer, how good he really is. Whether he can teach fighters different things. Some trainers are very versatile. Trainers get pigeonholed somewhat. Manny Stewart got pigeonholed by newer boxing fans because of his work with people like Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko especially being a very cautious fighter, not knowing that Manny Stewart's signature fighters throughout the years, especially in his early days, were fighters who were technically sound, but fighters who were very aggressive and big punchers. Manny Stewart likes big punchers, people like Tommy Hearns, Gerald McClellan, etc., etc. And he did train shorter fighters as well, successfully, like Dennis Andrews. He resurrected his career. So he's not just a guy that only had one particular style that he could teach. When he trained Evander Holyfield, even when he trained Lennox Lewis, he taught Lewis how to fight inside. Lewis was never a great inside fighter until he got with Manny Stewart, and then his inside game improved greatly, especially if you go watch the Ray Mercer fight. So he was a very versatile trainer. A lot of newer boxing fans don't seem to understand that. But it remains to be seen if Adam Booth has got that kind of ability. An article that I read, an interview with Adam Booth and David Price about the whole situation, Adam Booth said that David Price is the hardest punching fighter he's ever taken on the pads. We knew David Price could punch, and now we're hearing from David Haye's own trainer that he believes, well, he knows, I guess, that David Price hits harder than David Haye. I mean, it's not hard to believe given the size of David Price, but he says David Price really does have incredibly heavy hands. So with that kind of power, that kind of height and reach that he has, it's possible to resurrect his career. It's possible. If you can play it safe, stay behind a rangy jab, let people come to you, punish them for their mistakes with that tremendous punching power that he's got, it's possible to resurrect his career. But I don't know, man. I've always been a skeptic of David Price from day one. As most of you know, I was never on the Price bandwagon, and I'm skeptical about if he can resurrect his career, especially with Adam Booth. I just don't think, I'm not convinced that that's a marriage that is going to really work. Yeah, but remains to be seen, man. And like I say, stylistically, I'm not convinced it's going to work with Adam Booth. And also the mentality that David Price has. I've always felt that he's lacked a bit of inner confidence and self-belief. And that is not something you can teach. It's going to be a long, hard road back for David Price, man. Long, hard road back. There's talk of David Price fighting Derek Chisora early next year. That is another gamble. And I don't think he needs a gamble at this stage. You know, Derek Chisora said in an interview just the other day that he believes David Price should actually give up his Commonwealth and British titles and go back to 8-rounders. And I agree. Because we saw what happened with the Thompson rematch. He didn't react well mentally to the Thompson rematch, throwing him right back in at a certain level. I think he needs to go back to the drawing board, get his confidence back, get some easy KO wins in the bag to get his confidence back again, and maybe work on some new moves, work on some new tactics. And then once he's got that down pat, then move him up slowly, put him in 10-rounders again, slightly raise the level of competition. He's a guy that's going to need to be brought along slowly to get his confidence back. I don't think you can just throw him in there with a live wire like Derek Chisora. Listen, he's definitely got the power to knock Chisora out. There's no question about that. He could stretch Chisora out for a week if you caught him with the right shot. But at the same time, I could see him getting manhandled by Chisora. You know, if he don't manage to get Chisora out early and Chisora starts landing on him, I could see problems for David Price, and nightmares and all those mental scars from the Thompson defeats are going to resurrect themselves again. And not even the Thompson defeats, the defeats he had in the amateurs, people like Camarelli. You know, he's crumbled mentally a few times. So I think mentally he's very fragile right now. And I don't think a Chisora fight is the right way to go, personally. I think he's better off taking some easier fights, getting his confidence back, working on the new things that he'll be working on with Adam Booth, perfecting that first, and then moving up after that. So that's just my personal opinion. I wish the guy the best luck in the world. Ain't got nothing against David Price. Seems like a really nice guy. Wish him the best luck in the world, but I've always been skeptical of him, and I'm still skeptical. You know, it is what it is. Anyway, drop your comments in the comment section below. Do you agree or disagree? Do you think David Price can come back? Do you think him and Adam Booth is going to be a match made in heaven or not? Yeah? Hit me up in the comment section. This is Hatman. I'm out.